Hello and welcome back to Neuro Chatting, the podcast series that talks about all things neuro and everything else. I'm Sharon Jackson and today we're going to be talking about life after diagnosis. And I'm with Aisha.
Hi, I'm Aisha.
Hi, I'm Leanne.
So life after, there is life after. I mean, I can speak because I'm living with a neurological condition. I didn't think there was going to be life after when I was diagnosed, because you've obviously do things when you're ordinary and you're living in the real world, and then you suddenly become extraordinary because you're not part of that anymore. You've got to think of a new way. And we were talking a bit fancifully before, weren't we, about dancing and getting a neurological conditions like having a partner. Only this one, you don't know how it moves. You've got to try and get to know it a little bit and move with it, I think, and not let it just take over. Be a bit in control if you can. And I definitely felt like that when I was diagnosed, because I'd been very fit and active, running, doing whatever I felt like doing, and then suddenly you can't do it. And someone's saying to you, you know, you're probably not going to be doing that, and if you're walking, that's going to be a good thing. And yeah, so it can be quite the challenge when you first start. And dance partners are great, but when you don't know if they're going to tread on your toes, you've got to have your wits about you, haven't you? You've really got to have your wits about you. And I think things I've discovered, I mean, obviously, if I had not been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I would never have been shoved into the arena where I had to think about how being diagnosed with a neurological condition affected people and just how little provision there was for people. And that's why I was driven, there's no other word for it, to start neuro dropping and to make it possible for people to get help, support, somebody to listen, somebody who cared, somebody who was going to be on, you know, the same wavelength. One of the things that's come out of neuro dropping I'm really proud of is crafted dropping, which is where we've encouraged people to craft and make, and we do actually sell these products. I actually sell products as well. I'm quite amazed about that. I'm actually quite amazed that people buy this stuff. But it's a lovely thing to be able to disappear into mess, paint and paper, and just be transported, really. That's how I feel when I'm crafting. I think, you know, this is lovely. I'm making these things and like making presents for people, but I like it even better when people buy something that one of us has made and give it to someone else. It's really, really lovely. Crafting and making and doing. And even if you don't craft and make and do, it doesn't mean you can't be creative. And that's really key. I can remember going back right in the early stages of my diagnosis to someone telling me that I needed to adopt positive thinking. And I was like, I'm not a negative person, but maybe positive thinking, maybe we should be creative about how we're going to think. You know, try and think outside the box a bit, really. And for me, that was, I focused a lot of my attention in the early days on finding mobility aids that looked a bit better than the ones that were on the market. I spent a lot of time doing that. That was my creativity right in the beginning. But it's, you know.
Were you always a creative person, like even pre-diagnosis?
I think I must have that in me. Certainly when it comes to, well, I like to think that, you know, when we were doing the house up, I was the one who had all the ideas for the colours and what, you know, designed my own kitchen. And I think I grew up in a family where my brother was really super talented, an artist, and I'm definitely not an artist. And so I always thought that you had to be able to draw someone's face in order to be creative. That's what I thought, you know, unless you could do that, then you weren't going to be, you know. But learning, one of the things I love to do is jelly print. I absolutely love it. And I only learnt to do it just a couple of years ago, and I learnt it from a friend who came to do a demonstration at Neuro Dropping. And she showed me how to do it. And you know, you sometimes see something, you just immediately know you want to be able to do that. So I bought myself a little kit and started experimenting with it. And one of the problems I have is that if I try something, I've got to push it to its boundaries. I've got to adding something else in to see what it's going to be like with this. So I was like sprinkling sand on the palette just to see what it looked like when it printed, and then I made earrings, wooden earrings printed with, well, they're miniature pieces of art, really. That's what it is, you know, and it's not going to be in the Tate Gallery or anything like that, but it's something unique, because the beauty of jelly is you can never get two pieces the same. You can't do it again. You try, but it just doesn't work like that. And I think of it a little bit like baking, which is another of my hobbies. I always baked. I do bake still. And apparently I'm quite the expert when it comes to gluten-free baking, which I'm really good at, apparently, and by people who have to have gluten-free food. But I always if I get a recipe, I have to do something different. Try it the first time and think, yeah, that's exactly, but it would be just, what would happen if I did this or that? So I suppose really that's creative. And the other thing is the writing. I've always written, but I'm not, you know, I'm quite in awe of people who've ever had anything like a book published or anything like that. I think that would be incredible.
Just a shameless plug. Sharon is a co-author on a forthcoming book chapter with myself and Killian, so you are technically a published author.
Yeah. I'd love to, well, we're going to be talking, I think, about letter writing and journals and things, so I won't go into that too much, but I write every day something, even if it's just a sentence, or sometimes I get carried away and it'll be a full page before I've thought about it. And I have characters living in my head, and sometimes they say things, and so I write it down and think, oh, one day I'll make something of that. But I did write a book. It never got published. I sent it off to 17 different publishers and only one replied. And well, no, I got two replies. One was a complete out and out rejection, but the other one was really very nice. And it said, well, you know, it's not what we're looking for, but I think there's something there, but I never did anything with it. And now I probably wouldn't, because I was a lot younger then and thought differently, I think. But yeah, I'd like to do something, I think. Right, you know, something. Maybe the story of Neuro dropping would be a good story, you know, something about that. Yeah, they think in my family I'm the keeper of all our secrets, because there is nothing that happens in our family that isn't in my journal. So if anybody says anything, I'm no, you definitely said that. Back in 2013, on the 3rd of December, I heard it. And my son, actually, he's really quite sweet. He calls me the wise old owl. And he always will ask me, Mum, can you just check if this happened? Because he knows that it will be in there somewhere. Something will be relevant to it. And I've always made up stories for my grandchildren, so that's really nice as well.
That's lovely.
Stories, yeah. So that's me being creative, but it's more important to encourage other people as well, just to find that next thing, isn't it?
I think, though, just sticking with the idea of journal keeping, Aisha, do you want to tell us about your mum's wonderful journal and her diary keeping?
Yeah. So after my mum got diagnosed, she started journaling. And those journals, those diaries have been a very important part of her life ever since. She can't function without her journals. And everything important that happens on every single day, it goes into the diary. And every message or every feeling that she experiences, or a message that she thinks is important, will go in the diary. And then over the years, we've sort of gone through those diaries, or gone through some days where we found out she was upset, and then we tried to do me and my dad, we tried to do things differently so that we wouldn't upset her in the future. So that was like we were on a learning curve, and that really helped us to cope and cater to her feelings. And also, those diaries are like a little window in her life, and we are able to see what she can't express freely or independently, or how she perceives things. And it's a very good way, very different way of communicating with us. So yes,
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And she just can't function without her diaries. I mean, as soon as it's the 1st of December, she'll start reminding me, we need to get a new diary, we need to get a new diary. And yes, we do get a new diary. And it's such a precious activity for her. She likes to come along, and then she'll go through the diaries, and then she'll check the paper quality, and it's just very interesting to see how she chooses the diary she wants for the next year. And last year I was really unwell. I had shingles, so it was after Christmas, and she was like, I'm running out of pages. I'm running out of pages. And I just couldn't bear the pain. I was really bad those days. But I made sure we went out to get her diary because she just couldn't function without it. So yes.
So what kind of diary did she choose? I'm intrigued now.
So I think we went to W.H. Smith, the shop next to Cafe Neuro. Is it? Yeah. So for the last 2 years we've been going there because she doesn't like the quality of diaries at the works. Okay. Yeah.
For the purposes of this podcast, we are not in any way endorsing any of those companies.
I think I told my mom we need to go back to the shop and we need to tell them that these diaries are of really good quality, because how you go through them and how many times a day these diaries fall and they get harassed by you. And they're still keeping up their shape, so we need to go back and tell them that, they're still
like to hear that story.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just her own thing, and she's just very, very possessive about her diaries. Yeah, and whatever goes into them.
Can you tell us a little bit then? So 2 things that you said there. So how many? So I take it she gets ones that's like it's with the day that she writes in that day. Does she ever extend beyond the page? No, she keeps everything within that one page.
That's interesting.
Even I can't read. Her handwriting is so small that it's really hard for her for anyone to just read.
So what size is the diary? Is it an A4 size?
No, smaller. It's probably A3, yeah.
A5 or whatever, I'm not sure. I think A3 is bigger than A4.
Slightly bigger than this, yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably about an A5 size, sorry, yeah.
I think it's amazing, actually, and I think that it's interesting because your mum, did she keep these journal and diaries before she was diagnosed? Yeah, did she have them?
She wasn't very regular, but she has always been journaling, and even I was very young, I remember, and she used to ask all of us to write stuff down and, keep a shorthand and just have information there so you can reflect on your experiences and cherish good times and learn lessons from the bad ones.
Well, I think it's really lovely. My mum didn't keep journal as such, but when she was progressing with her illness, she always had a notepad by the side of the bed with a pen, and sometimes the writing was illegible, but when it wasn't, you could make out words. And if you just looked at it, because a lot of the time it was just scribble, really, but then there would be the odd words in it, and I would write those into my phone so that I would see what she'd written, because I didn't want to take the book away or tear out a page or anything. And I found, I don't know, I wanted to make sense of it somehow. I wanted it to mean something. Who was saying those things for a reason. And I found that really helpful to me after my mum passed. It was really, I don't know, that first year after she'd gone, I found myself going back to these words and looking at them and really having a good think.
Did they help you make sense of them?
I think they did. I could see that it wasn't that there were. It was when the words are sometimes very sad. I mean, she'd say things like confusion, and I knew that she was confused about what was happening to her because she didn't know, she didn't understand. And there was one time she'd written something about a red shoe, and I realised what that was. There was nothing to do with, it wasn't that she was looking for a red shoe or that she had a red shoe. It was when she first met Dorothy, who looked after her. Dorothy wore red shoes, so that was the connection. And she didn't write Dorothy's name, she just wrote red shoe, and I just knew that's what she meant. And it was, it was lots of little things, and I thought she was there somewhere, but it was towards the end of her life. It was difficult to find her sometimes, and she had no idea who I was. Well, she did have an idea who I was, and she used to talk about all of us, but to us. So she would talk about me to me.
Yeah, got you.
But it was, I wasn't.
Without realising that she's talking about you to you. Yeah.
And there was just, very, very, very rare moments when she'd say something that you kind of thought, oh, she does know it's me. But yeah, she used to just say, oh, that was me. She looks like Sharon, she would say.
Oh.
So it's quite fun in a way, but nice.
But it's nice, again, it kind of comes back to what you were saying, Aisha, that your mum's journals are like a window into how she's feeling, and actually in some ways your mum's words was the same. It's that little window into how she was feeling and how she was thinking through her condition and her sense of self at that point in time, which is really lovely. Going back to your mum's journal, Aisha, and I know that we've talked about this as part of the PhD, but can you just talk to us a little bit about how she uses language and languages in different ways? Because I know that sometimes if she doesn't want you, is that true? If she doesn't want you to read something, she writes it in a different language. If you just want to explain that a bit.
Yeah, so when my mum's usually upset or angry with me or something that's remotely related to me or any of my siblings, she'll just write her thoughts or feelings in Swahili, and and then it'll be very hard for us to figure out what she means or what really is going on inside her mind. But that's her way of keeping a secret, but at the same time letting it out, getting it in one paper. So
that need to be her and not share it with you is really, I think it's amazing. I think that's a gift for you. The journals are a gift, that it will keep you sane and help you.
Yeah. And it's funny because maybe after 6 months, she'll just, because she goes through her diary almost every day, so she'll know what happened. And then she'll just bring something up that happened, and you'll be like, oh my God, how does she remember this? But then she read about it from her diary, and then she'll be like, oh, you did this. This happened.
There you go. That's like me. I've got evidence of what someone has said 3 years ago.
You're almost like you're constantly surveilled in some ways. It's like, you can't do that.
The CCTV with a pen.
Yes.
I think it's amazing. I mean, going back to neuro dropping, we did something not so much producing journals, but with magic words.
Yeah.
Amazing thing, just to hear people's thoughts and helping people to put things together, and that's quite creative. And we've got people who do write, and that's lovely. And what we'll be doing in later podcasts is having some of these people as guests. They can talk to us about their creativity, which is, quite envious of some of the things that get done, which is amazing.
Maybe just to explain what Magic Words is again, because I think it's people listening might not understand how that works, but it's a really cool initiative. So if you could just explain it a little bit.
Yeah, it was just that. The thing is, that I've mentioned earlier, I do love to write. I like to write myself, and I write every day. But it was just trying to find a way to encourage other people to get their emotions out. And certainly with your PhD work, Ayesha, you gave people specific words that you thought would lead them in directions. As an organisation, we've worked over the years with the university on different projects to do with dementia specifically, but words didn't really figure very much. It was more about practical, hands-on stuff. So I would choose 5 words and just give them to people and say, take that away and make something of it. So people would write a little story, and if it was about a personal story to them, then that was fantastic, because it's therapeutic as well. It's getting something out that might have concerned you. But you came, Leanne, didn't you, listened to, and we were talking one day about Magic Words, and you joined in and heard some of the stories, and very, very moving, some of the things that people say.
Yeah, I remember the day that I came, and I feel like it was 2 of the words I remember. One was sun and one was boat. And then one of the members had written this beautiful story about when she was a child and went on a boat with her parents and had this picnic. And I just remember thinking, but it was written in such a way that I genuinely thought she had made this up. And I said, that's amazing. I was like, did you just make that up? She went, no, what happened? She was really insulted. I was like, oh no. But it was just really beautiful. And it's just 5 simple words. And then people make either a story out of it, or a poem, or tell about their own lives. And it was just really wonderful. And so then we tried to include that then as part of the way that you would engage with the members at Neuro as part of Ayesha's PhD. So how have you found that? Because obviously it's different types of words that focus more on maybe exclusion, or maybe on inclusion and how they feel included. And so how have you sort of found that process?
I found it quite slow, to be honest, because the centre was shifting and we couldn't get a lot of members to participate. But there were members who were participating, and they did share some valuable insights with the words that were given to them. And to facilitate more members, I suggested that we could take it online on WhatsApp and maybe have more participants participate every week. So I did get a lot of interesting stories and insights about how people felt, whether about a holiday or their dog. So yes, it was a wonderful thing to experience.
Yeah. You have to tell us about the dog. What was the story about the dog, if you can remember?
I think it was Tony's dog, yes?
Tony's dog died.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So he was very much part of his life, and very much part of his day-to-day. So, the dog had passed away. But I think one of the things that cropped up is... and this is just not that long ago, actually. I was at the centre and we were talking about reading. And I was, I don't know how it came about, really. There were just 2 members there, and I just said, one of them was reading a magazine. And I said, what are you reading in there? And he said, I'm just looking at this. And showed me a picture. And he said, I can't read. And then another one said, I can't read. And so that got me thinking, hang on a minute, what are we missing here? Because to be unable to read, for whatever the reason that is, it could be to do with your condition, it could be something that you never learnt to read, there's a lot of stigma attached to that. So I was very aware of this. And so we're starting something very soon called The Magic of Words, and we're going to have someone read the back of a book, and then the rest of us are going to tell them what we think is going to happen next. So we're going to make up our own stories from the backs of books. We promise we won't let the authors know that that's what we've done. But if you read the synopsis or the back of the book, it can be really, sometimes you can read the back of the book and it doesn't live up to it inside. But then we thought, for the people who don't read or write, they can still create, because they'll be talking and we'll record it whilst we're doing it, so that afterwards we can see how the story goes. And then we thought we might progress to doing the old game where you start off with a sentence.
And then someone adds a
someone
sentence
has to add a bit
and you
to
layer
it.
it on.
And we'll see how we go with that. Because we've had some incredible conversations just recently about how difficult reading is for people. Holding a book, for example, is heavy, and accessing books and feeling don't really. So we're going to be reading, I cannot wait, some Gruffalo books. Julia Donaldson, we're going to read the Gruffalo. Nice. And so one of our members thought that she would have a go at reading, because she doesn't read very well, and she's picked up George and the Giant Peach. So it's quite a hefty thing to pick up, and it's not one of it's not one of the most loved books of his. There are others. Matilda might have been a good one, because there's been a bit. She could have, anyway. Whatever. She's going to have a little opportunity to read the Gruffalo.
Nice.
We'll see how that goes, and because she was saying she wants to make more connection with her daughter, and I said, well, reading's a great way to do that, but there just needs to be something that she can get into herself. She thinks her mind wanders as well, that she wasn't able to follow the story of the George and the Giant Peach.
Also, I suppose that's the thing, because I was thinking, though, there's audiobooks for if it's about it being heavy, but actually, as you were saying, if your mind finds it difficult to concentrate, then the audiobook might not work, whereas the interactive sort of nature of, okay, here's the synopsis, let's together recreate this story, or create this story, that actually could be a really nice interactional way of being able to read or create together, which is a lovely idea.
So we're going to give that a go anyway and see how it gets on. But it's just, one of the things we've also been doing different things with physical stuff. The things that have proved the most popular that people are loving is seated volleyball. They love it. It's great. I think that's we had a very big class of that this week, with carers and members in together, all having a lot of fun, and even some people that came as carers went into the group, and their other half or the person they looked for was doing something else, which is what we like. We love that kind of thing. So yeah,
I think it's really interesting hearing you talking about sort of creativity, and I think you said this, I'm assuming that you said this because I've written your name next to Aisha, but when we were sort of thinking through this podcast, you'd said this idea, which I thought was really profound, and I wrote it down. It was, when you write something down, it disempowers it. And you said something similar, this idea that, and I think you said the same as well, Sharon, that it's therapeutic, but you'd said, Aisha, that when you write something down, it almost disempowers it, so it stops it bothering you. And I think that's interesting. You were saying, like, your mum does that as well. It's like she might write in Swahili, but it's allowing her to kind of vent that anger without upsetting anybody around her. And I think that's really interesting, that idea that actually the creativity of writing or the creativity of words can actually be really therapeutic. But also, Sharon, you mentioned the idea of Tai-Chi and doing Tai-Chi at the centre, and how it's like self-defence, and how you actually see that as not self-defence as in that you can support yourself or protect yourself from any harm, but actually self-defence in terms of managing your diagnosis.
Yes, exactly.
So maybe tell us a little bit about that. It just occurred to me that that's what it is, really. It's if you say to someone it's a martial art, and we tried this in the class yesterday, and I didn't try it. The tutor tried it, saying he actually asked that question without knowing what I was going to say about self-defence, and
he said to this new person in the class, what do you think Tai Chi is? And he said, I think it's a martial art. And he said, it is a martial art. What do you think it's doing? Well, most people do martial arts for self-defense. So I felt then I had to say what I was thinking, which is that self-defense is really important to all of us diagnosed, not just with neurological conditions. You need it whatever you're facing in life, because though your enemy, if we can call it that, is inside you, you need to have a way to tackle it, to keep it down. It's a bit like the dance partner. If it's not dancing the way you want, try and find a way to work around it or work with it, because you cannot lose it. It's there, it's staying, so you may as well try and do the best you can. And Larry is our teacher for Tai Chi, and he said, you are exactly right. That is what we're trying to do here. We're doing Qigong, and it's about gathering the forces of the nature around you, the energy and the strength for what's inside that needs it to battle that. And it is a daily fight. Only if you think of it in that respect, you imagine yourself battling with swords and clubs. That's not the same thing. It's overcoming it enough so that your mental health can cope with what's it's got to face. And it's not easy to do it. It's not easy for anybody to do it. And I don't pretend that it is, but that was just the way I was thinking about self-defense. And I'd actually written this in my journal a few months ago, because I was thinking about the different classes, and I was thinking it's like self-defense. You know, when people, I'm going to a self-defense class, we're doing it every single day. When we wake up in the mornings, we're in self-defense mode, because you have to protect yourself against what's coming at you. And a lot of the time, you don't know what it is. So that's all part of the life after thing. It's a constant learning curve. People are so resilient, people who live with this kind of stuff. And obviously I'm living with it as well, but I think I'm resilient. I think that you have to be, because you have to survive. And your mum, Aisha, is resilient because she's fighting back in a way with her journals, and especially when she's writing in a foreign language. I think it's brilliant. I might like to try that myself. The things you don't want people to read. I think that's amazing, because I just love it when people get the opportunity just to be a person and not someone who, you know, we don't go into neuro dropping thinking we're there because we've got a neurological condition. We go there because we're meeting new people, and we're meeting people who know what it's like to be us. And that's really nice. And sometimes, you know, you do have bad days and feel miserable. And, you know, I'm quite shocked actually, because just recently I've had this problem with I now know it's my back, but it's causing some really horrible pain with my leg. And I'd been in a lot of pain one day, and it must have shown on my face, and someone said, what's the matter? You know, don't look like. I said, I've got this problem. And they were so worried. You know, it was so nice. You know, I was saying, have you heard anything? What's going to happen? And you know, is it going to be permanent and all of this? And I'm thinking, how nice is that? Just that support network. So all that can come out of, again, it's a form of self-defense. You know, it's like I'm sucking that in, because I think that's really lovely, that support and that power. So, you know, I think you mentioned earlier, you know, about the spontaneity thing. What would you do? I actually think that comes into it as well. You know, that sort of eagerness to do something, but you will find a way. And sometimes you just have to go about it round the houses, and it's not going to be a straight path, and it might be a bit bumpy, and could think of all the metaphors in the world, and they'll all fit. So, yeah.
I do. I love that idea of, we think of creativity and art and all of those kind of things as almost like quite soft and quite therapeutic, but actually there's real power in them, and I like that idea of them being like defences. I mean, for the Marketplace Now project that myself and Killian work on, the drive for that was, I went on a jumbulance trip and recognised the people that I was caring for, needed care with lots of things such as couldn't walk, talk, feed or bathe themselves without assistance, but had really powerful creative ways of expressing who they are, from head painting to poetry to storytelling. Amazing. And recognising that we need to understand this, we need to engage in these creative ways to be able to understand their experiences and then tell their stories. But I've never thought about them as actually, I knew there was power in them, but I've never thought about them as sort of like defences. And they're defences, they're ways of defending the self, of allowing the self to still be retained and the self to evolve and with your, as you were saying, dancing partner with your condition. So I really love that metaphor of the defender, the creativity as a defender of the self.
It is, I think it is, and I think it's a defend. It helps you. It's also an escape, and it makes you different in a kind of like really positive way. And I don't know. There's some really nice things, things I wouldn't be doing now if this thing hadn't happened to me. And I think the biggest thing obviously is neuro dropping. I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't be, doing that. But I do still feel really, truly, sometimes people say things to me as though I'm like, I've done something amazing. For me, it's just, I can, so I have. That's it. It's not like amazing. But unfortunately, some people do tend to think you're a bit of a miracle worker, but you're only doing what should happen, really. But yeah, it's exciting.
I think that's a good point. What you're saying, though, is like this whole podcast is about the life after the diagnosis. And so often people think, well, there's no life after a diagnosis. And actually what you've proven with neuro drop-in is that that's not the case. And actually there's a lot of positivity that comes from neurological conditions and from disabilities. I have experienced that from the research that I've done, and it's sort of like what we said in the last podcast. Of all the people I've worked with that have become carers, they've never once said, oh, I wish this didn't happen. They've said, I've actually became a better person through it. I believe I've became a better person through this research. And I think that's a really important thing, that actually our society doesn't recognise that actually there's lots of light and power that comes with disabilities and with neurological conditions, but we fail to recognise them, we fail to appreciate them. And hopefully maybe this inspires more people to be creative, but also inspires people to recognise the creativity of disability and of neurological conditions.
And I think it will, and I think hopefully as well, I'd like to think that it gives people a reason to smile and think, it's like, it's not great. You wouldn't, if you had the chance to take it away, then you would, I think, but you can't. So instead of thinking about that too much, just think. And that doesn't mean that I don't have a moaning session now and again, because I do. I'm plenty good on the moan. but especially with the bird feeders. I must have mentioned that 15 times this week. Huh? But the reality is that I know I probably wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't come up with an idea to make something happen. And neuro dropping wouldn't be happening without the amazing people who work for the charity, who make it happen every day. But they tell me they make it happen because they know that's what I wanted. That was what I wanted to create, and I'm very proud of it. I think it's a great thing, and I just wish I had the wherewithal to give this facility to people other than in Lancaster. I mean, and I wish Lancaster itself, we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for our city, because they do support us. We get a lot of support, and obviously you guys are supporting what we do. And everybody that gets involved, the volunteers are all 100% behind it, and it's just great. It's just lovely. But yeah, so I get a lot of rewards from my involvement, and I think of it as creative as well, because I created it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, creation is so much more than just, like, I would say I'm not a creative person. I would say I'm an ideas person, but I suppose ideas is creative in its own way. So I can have really great ideas, but I can't necessarily put it down into, like, I can't transpute it into paper or into sort of physicals, but I can have these ideas in my head. And I think that's a really important thing, actually. We have to think about creativity as more than just about art. We so often think about it just automatically, but it can be volleyball with a balloon, it can be Tai-Chi, it can be journal writing. Yeah. And coming back to you, Aisha, I just wondered, do you keep a journal? And also,
have you got time?
Yeah, exactly. Do you have time to keep a journal? And is there anything that you've read in your mum's journal that's just like blown your mind? Either something that's been funny or something that's just been like, wow, I didn't think about it that way.
I do tend to write, especially on days when I'm either very angry or upset. And that's when I just try to put it down on paper. That's how I try to disengage with it. And in regards to my mum, there are a lot of interesting things that go in her diary, but something that really moved me about 4 years ago was that after my dad passed away, she started writing important information for him. And she wrote it in a way that he might read that information. And then about 6 or 7 months after he passed away, she started sending that information or those messages to him on WhatsApp. So everything that she thinks is important, she sends him as a message on WhatsApp. So everything like us traveling or me coming here for my PhD and how incredibly proud she is, everything goes as a message in the chat to him. And somehow she thinks that I'm either a surgeon, I'm going to change lives, or a superhero. So, yeah, so those are really fascinating things that she messages him. And yeah, it's sad that it's just one tick. Those messages don't get seen or read, but I think that's a beautiful way of her communicating with him. And
I do. I think it's amazing. I do. It's not the forum for too much detail, but we have 2 grandchildren, and we don't see our eldest grandchild, and we hadn't seen him since he was 10 years old, and it was really hard. And I had a good piece of advice from a lovely friend who said to me, why don't you write to him? And I said, but I can't, because I don't know where he is. She said, don't send the letters. She said, keep them and then make an email and send them there. So I've been doing that for nearly 4 years, writing to him. And we did actually see him by accident this Christmas, which was amazing. And we now do have tentative contact, and one day he can read those letters. But
how lovely for him to know that in those 4 years or so you were thinking of him. Like, that's a really powerful gift.
It was it's there, they're all there, and it would just be day-to-day things I would tell him, and I didn't write every day, but I would just say, and it's in all the letters. I've read the letters again myself recently. There are 20 letters over that period of time, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot, really. It's 20 letters, and I've started them all and finished them all exactly the same. It's like, we think about you, we love you very much, and that's it, and that's all you can say. Because for a child, I think if any child is honest, I'm 68 this year, but all I ever wanted was for my dad to say that he'd actually at some point loved me. That's all I ever wanted, because I didn't see much of him. And I think that's all any of us want, and you've got something there from your mum. It's just amazing. I think it's a lovely gift, and you might, it'll be a gift of sadness at times, but also there'll be some joy in there, and she'll make you smile, especially when you see the Swahili.
I think what's so beautiful about that as well is that maybe she does know on some level that actually this is her way of telling you how proud she is, although I get the impression from everything you said about your mum, she just tells you that to your face anyways, which is beautiful. But also it's her way of still being able to almost keep your dad alive for her.
Yeah.
And I just think that's beautiful, because it's almost like your two parents in some ways just being able to see how proud they are of you. And I know you say it's quite sad because it never gets read, but I like to think that, somewhere your dad is overseeing that, and it's really beautiful that it's just a really lovely way of conversing with, probably dealing with her grief and her loss, but also showing you how loved you are, and that's a really beautiful thing. I read at the tail end of last year, sorry, I know we've went on about books in another previous episode, but
have we?
Yeah. I thought you were being serious there. No, I read a lovely book, and sorry if I mentioned this in the last podcast, I can't remember. It was called Letters of Note, and it was about letters throughout history that were just like absolutely beautiful. So some of them were famous ones. So like Beethoven wrote a letter to a lover. No one knows who this lover was. It was never addressed. It was never sent. It was found amongst his possessions. So this person that he loved never even got this message. Maybe they were dead. We don't know. But what really struck me about this book was the number of letters that were to people who had passed away. And it was because some of them had been lost in war, or they'd been lost suddenly. And it gave the sender that chance to be able to say goodbye, or that closure, and it's really beautiful to just think how words can do that for people, how they can allow, even like we're talking about your journals, and how they can be a gift just now because it allows you to converse with your mum, but also in the future it's something you can look back on, and how the words that your mum wrote in her notepad, Sharon, how that became a real way for you to be able to work through your grief. And I just think there's something really beautiful about how words can inspire in that way.
I'm amazed by that there are three of us in this room, and your mum's kept a journal with it's like messages to you. My mum wrote all those things down that I took as messages to me, and they may not have had anything to do with me, but that's how I perceived it. I keep a journal with a message to my grandson, and that's just two of us in a room here. Mm-hmm. How many people out there are doing the same thing, and we don't know. People don't always tell you things like this, and sometimes you find things out when people have gone, and it's like really sad. And I've warned my son about my journals. I said they're all up there, including all the horrible things you've done. It's all recorded in there. Nobody's getting away with anything in these journals. But I think we don't always appreciate our own strength. And it's this, going back to this thing, in a way, it is a form. For me, when I was writing to my grandson, it was kind of like, yes, I wanted him to know he'd never been forgotten. That was the key. But it was also giving me strength as well, and power. Yeah. I felt as if it empowered me, because I was able to, I felt like I was talking to him, even though I never got an answer. Mm. And when I did get to talk to him at Christmas, I had to really, really keep a sort of hold on myself, because I had millions of things I wanted to say, and I did say to him, I've got millions of questions for you. And I said, but I'm not going to ask them all at once. I'll save a few. Yeah. But yeah, and so I think we can get a lot from that, can't we? Yeah. About life after. There is life after.
Definitely.
And I'm not saying that only people who've got neurological conditions are writing journals, because they're not. But there can be lots of gifts from people who perhaps don't communicate as much to people that families can find afterwards or during.
Yeah.
Oh, that's been lovely. That it's really nice.
Yeah.
We've got Before we kind of wrap up this particular podcast, we should just say that we're going to invite some real people other than us to come next time to our first. This is the last one in our series today, which I've loved. I think it's been a really nice one to end on. And next time we'll be welcoming some people in to join us on the podcast who are, well, I mean, I think proper creatives. You know, they're one of them's an author of a book. Well, two of them are authors. One is an artist, and one of them is a wildlife photographer. So it'll be lovely to speak to them over time and, you know, hear all about how they, you know, maybe answer the question: were they this creative before? Yeah. Or is it something they've discovered in their life after? Yeah. Very interesting.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So thank you very much for listening. I'm talking as though there's people in the room. Thank you very much for listening. Cheerio for now.